In this fortnight's episode, we need to be nice. What's in the news? Statists Gonna State with Uncle Bernie Sanders, and how to live a lava lifestyle by defending yourself.
Welcome to The Lava Flow, channeling the flow of information to the libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, and agorist community. Find us at thelavaflow.com. Here's your host, Roger Paxton.
Thank you for joining me this week, coming to you from Lava HQ. Flowing from the state that is the home of the Ozark Mountains, where 36 men called the Slacker Gang hid out from the county sheriff, federal deputies, and an army colonel for over 2 years without detection to avoid the draft during World War I, because they saw no reason to fight the Germans on behalf of, quote, silk-hatted fellows up in New York to make a lot of money. This is the show that will bring you the people, places, and events that everyone in the Liberty Revolution needs to know. You can catch me on Twitter at the Lava Flow Pod. This is episode 13, the Be Nice edition, and it's Tuesday, June 23rd, 2015, when we've already had more than 529 people killed by police this year. What's wrestling my jimmies this week? You're about to find out. Let's do it to it. Be nice.
Be nice. Come on. If somebody gets in your face and calls you a cocksucker, I want you to be nice.
Okay.
Ask him to walk, but be nice. If he won't walk, walk him, but be nice. If you can't walk him, one of the others will help you, and you'll both be nice. I want you to remember that it's a job. It's nothing personal.
Uh-huh. Being called a cocksucker isn't personal?
No. It's two nouns combined to elicit a prescribed response.
I wonder if somebody calls my mama a whore.
Is she? I want you to be nice until it's time to not be nice.
A few weeks ago, at the Libertarian Party of Arkansas convention, Nicholas Sarwark was the keynote speaker. He's the national chair of the Libertarian Party, and his speech was extremely well done, and I learned a lot from it. The part that most stuck out for me was be nice. Now, this is a very hard thing to do for many libertarians, it seems, including me. This is something that I've struggled with for years. It's easy to be haughty to people who may not be as philosophically consistent as we are as libertarians. It's really easy to turn people off and turn them away with our language and our actions. Most of these people will never look at libertarianism again because they took our language or actions personally. But if you're nice, they may not agree with you right away, but at least they will leave the conversation thinking, to take a phrase from Sarwark, that libertarian, he sure was nuts, but at least he was nice. This will make them much more receptive to listening to libertarian ideas in the future. It is, or at least should be, our goal, after all, to make more people understand libertarianism so they will eventually become philosophically consistent as well. The only way that our world will become a libertarian world is for more people to get it, and for more people to understand it, and for more people to identify as libertarians and actually want a libertarian world. If we remain a small movement, we will likely never see real change in our future. It seems to me that there are an awful lot of libertarians who would rather be right than see a libertarian future. What's more important to you? Would you rather be right, or would you rather bring about a more free world for our kids, their kids, and so on? I don't know about you, but I want my future generations to have much more freedom than we have today. I want a near future generation of mine to not have to fight tooth and nail for liberty like we have to. I want all of that much more than I want to be right. As John Adams once said, quote, I must study politics and war that my sons may have liberty to study mathematics and philosophy. My sons ought to study mathematics and philosophy, geography, natural history, naval architecture, navigation, commerce, and agriculture in order to give their children a right to study painting, poetry, music, architecture, statuary, tapestry, and porcelain. Now this is what it's all about, or we are just wasting our time. I, for one, refuse to waste my time anymore. I will do whatever it takes to ensure liberty for my future generations. And if it means that I have to be nice, then by God, I will be nice. I hope you do the same.
Have you subscribed to the Lava Flow on iTunes or any mobile device yet? Then what's wrong with you? Go to thelavaflow.com/subscribe so you don't miss a minute of the show. And while you're subscribing, make sure to leave me a 5-star rating and review the show to help others find our podcast. thelavaflow.com/subscribe.
What's in the news? The news you need to know from a libertarian perspective.
In DHS, stands for Doing Hateful Shit news, a Florida couple were arrested back in April because their 11-year-old son played outside for 90 minutes by himself. Yep, you heard that right. Their son played basketball in the yard alone for 90 minutes, so the couple was arrested, strip-searched, fingerprinted, held overnight in jail, and charged with felony neglect. They also had both the 11-year-old son and their other 4-year-old son taken from them for over a month. This was all due to the couple being stuck in traffic and arriving home late to let him in after school. A nosy fucking neighbor called the cops, who brought DHS into the situation and had the couple arrested. The law in California states a person who willfully or by culpable negligence neglects a child without causing great bodily harm, permanent disability, or permanent disfigurement to the child commits a felony of the 3rd degree. Negligence? For your kid to play outside by himself for 90 minutes in his own backyard is negligence? This is beyond crazy. Here's a quote from Cindy, the mother in this situation. The authorities claim he had no access to water or shelter. We have an open shed in the back and 2 working sinks and hoses. They said he had no food. He ate his snacks already. He had no bathroom. But the responding officer found our yard good enough to relieve himself in while our son sat in a police car alone. In his own yard, in a state, Florida, that has no minimum age for children to be alone. After over a month, the family finally got their kids back, but they still must head to criminal court for the negligent charges. Also, as part of the deal with DHS to keep their kids, the mother and father must attend parenting classes and therapy, and the kids have to attend play therapy. Also, the older kid must attend day camp, and the younger kid must go to daycare all summer long. As Reason said, Cindy and Fred cannot be sure who called the cops and turned their lives upside down. They have their suspicions, but they do know who told them that they needed to take parenting classes, to get therapy, and promise never to let their kids play in their own backyard without a watchman again. They know who took their children away. And you know too. Yes, we do know. It's government. And government is force, and force is immoral. In Papers, Please news, a 19-year-old Michigan man pled guilty to a misdemeanor count of criminal sexual conduct for having sex, consensual sex, with a teen girl who lied to him about her age when she told him that she was 17. It turns out she was only 14 at the time, 2 years under the age of consent in Michigan. Now the man sits in jail for 90 days, has 5 years probation, and will be on the Michigan Sex Offender Registry for 25 years. Because a girl lied to him and he didn't ask to see proof of her age. Even the girl and her mother asked the judge to drop the case, since this was clearly the fault of the girl and not the man. Quote, "What do I say? I feel that nothing should happen to Zach," the girl said at the first of his 2 sentencing hearings April 13th, accompanied by her mother. Her mom followed her daughter at the hearing. "I don't want him to be a sex offender because he really is not, and I know there's an age difference, and I realize that, name deleted, was inappropriate that night. We didn't know," the mother said. She continued, "I'm very sorry, and I hope you'll really consider the fact of just dropping the case. I can't say anything more than that. I hope you really will for all of our families. In If You Have Lemons, You'd Better Get a Permit news, it's that time of year again. Summertime. When little boys and girls want to earn a few bucks selling lemonade to people. How dare these agorists, these black market fiends, think that they can do this without going through the bureaucracy and getting permission to do so? How dastardly. In Texas, 2 girls, 8 and 7, set up a lemonade stand to raise money to buy their father a gift for Father's Day, a trip to a water park. About an hour after they started, our protectors in blue showed up with their badges and guns to tell the kids that they were breaking the law and would need a permit. The family friend ran up to get the permit and found out that it would cost $150 for a peddler's permit. Fortunately, the city decided to waive the large fee, which just shows how arbitrary and silly these types of laws are, but then said that they would also need to have a health department inspection before they could sell any more lemonade to ensure food that requires temperature control to prevent spoilage is kept at the correct temperature. Last summer, my 2 boys sold lemonade during a couple of yard sales that we had to raise personal spending money to spend at Disney World last year. I would have been incensed if some fucking bureaucrat came to my house to tell us that this was not allowed. Government is out of control when it sends its thugs to tell children that they can't sell lemonade. In Wash Your Mouth Out with $250 news, the city of Arlington, Virginia is enforcing a ban on using words that officials define as profanity. If caught, you will be fined $250. No word on what word or words will get you this fine, but I would imagine if you called one of the city council members a jackbooted asshat, you would be eligible for this cursing tax. I think, though, in that case, it might be worth it. In I'm sure glad I've got that male privilege news, the U.S. Treasury Department has announced that it will be replacing Alexander Hamilton on the $10 bill with a female in 2020. First of all, is it just me, or does 2020 sound like it's ages away and not just 5 years away? That's crazy. But anyway, the Treasury Department plans to seek public input on which woman should replace Hamilton by holding town hall meetings and roundtable discussions to discuss, quote, what qualities best represent democracy to help guide the design process. Apparently, one of those qualities is having a vagina. Now, to be clear, I am in no way opposed to a woman being on fiat currency, just as I'm in no way opposed to a female president. I am much more opposed to fiat currency in the office of the president than I am of a female on the currency or in that office. What I am opposed to is this idea that because someone is a female, that in some way gives them priority. What if the Treasury had said that they were excluding the consideration for the new face on the $10 bill to only old white men, or that you should vote for Jeb Bush because he has a penis? This would, of course, be ridiculed as sexism. Yet that's what's happening here, and when people say that you should vote for Hillary Clinton because it's time that we had a woman president. Changing the body part from a penis to a vagina in no way makes this any better or any less sexist. If the Treasury Department really wants to make social justice warriors happy, and it seems that they do, then they will put Rachel Dolezal on the $10 bill. This way, they can have a self-identified black female representative. I'd vote for that. In You Totally Showed Up to the Wrong Campground news, 2 Department of Revenue agents dressed to the nines showed up at PorkFest on Monday to interrogate food vendors in Agora Alley to see if they had government-issued licenses to voluntarily sell food to hungry humans who voluntarily wanted to purchase the food. Ian Freeman from Free Talk Live and many other activists met these agents at the campground office and began asking them questions on video, and then asked the agents to leave. The agents finally gave up and walked back to the office after trying to harass only one food vendor. They then had a 30-minute private conversation with the owner of the campground, which they came out of that meeting and walked straight to their cars and left the grounds. This is activism at its finest, folks. A group of libertarian activists and a couple of government thugs packing without any violence whatsoever just by letting them know that they weren't welcome. It is, of course, likely that the agents will be back, but I can assure you the activists at PorcFest will be even more prepared when they do return. This is why it's so important for libertarian meetings to happen. Seeing these kind of things hamper government force is a beautiful thing. Go to the show notes for this episode at thelavaflow.com/14 to see the video that Ian took of this exchange. Seeing this video really pumped me up. I was very sad that I couldn't make it to PorcFest this year. But as soon as I saw this video, my wife and I pledged that we will, without a doubt, be at PorcFest 13 next year. I hope to see lots of the Lava Flow listeners there, and I will plan on having at least one event there just for my listeners. Stay tuned to hear for more over the coming year. In some personal house cleaning, Jesse is a new patron of the Lava Flow. He was awesome enough to go to thelavaflow.com/support and give a per episode donation to support this show. This means that taking into account both my Patreon and Bitcoin per episode donations, I am at 21% of the way to bringing you more content. If you want more content from the Lava Flow, then head on over to thelavaflow.com/support yourself and pledge a per episode donation of as little as $1 an episode. Every little bit helps towards reaching the first milestone, where I will start giving you weekly content from the Lava Flow. If you're awesome like Jesse, go to thelavaflow.com/support to help me reach that milestone.
Statists Gonna State.
As I'm sure you're all by now aware, independent Senator Bernie Sanders from Vermont has thrown himself into the ring to run for the Democratic nomination for president. Even though he's not a Democrat, he caucuses with the Democrats on most things in the Senate, but he calls himself a Democratic socialist. Yes, he self-describes as a socialist, and damn it if he isn't right. I've watched this guy over the years with derision and fear. As terrifying as Tom Cotton is on the right, Bernie Sanders is just as terrifying on the left, since he looks and talks just like everyone's favorite uncle. In the first 4 days after his announcement, he raised $3 million, and it had over 185,000 people sign up to volunteer for his campaign. Many folks write him off, but not me. This guy is much more likable and honest than Hillary Clinton ever will be. Not that that's a tough thing to accomplish. And he is, so far anyway, doing everything right. He tells people what they want to hear. He tells the average masses who have no concept of economics, or that free really isn't free, and that have no recollection of what socialism really does to a country, that he will provide everything that they need for free and force others to give it to them. I'm going out on a limb here, but I believe that this guy will win the Democratic nomination for president. This should terrify you, like it does me. What does this guy stand for? Here's a quick list, then we'll dive deep into a couple of these. He is calling for a national minimum wage of $15 per hour over the next few years. He wants to ban all assault weapons. He wants, air quotes, free college tuition for everyone for 2 years, saying that college is a human right. He wants a single-payer healthcare system, with that single payer being the government, of course. He wants to expand Social Security and Medicaid. He wants to spend $1 trillion of your money over the next 5 years rebuilding U.S. infrastructure, including bridges, roads, rail lines, the electric grid, ports, and inland waterways. Now, Bernie does get some things right, such as opposition to war, opposition to the militarization of police, and opposition to domestic surveillance. He also supports marriage rights, but still wants the government to be involved in marriage. He's against the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and he is for immigration reform. So it's not all bad, but the bad is bad. Let's hear Bernie talk about his vision for healthcare.
The issue that we're talking about today is about fundamental rights. and it is about ending the disgrace, the national disgrace, that the United States of America remains the only major country on earth that does not guarantee health care to our people as a right of citizenship.
Healthcare is a human right.
Healthcare is absolutely a human right, whether you're rich or whether you're poor or whether you are in the middle class. Every person in this country has a right to know that when he or she gets sick, they're not going to face bankruptcy. They're not going to delay going to the doctor because they can't afford the deductible, that they know that they go to the doctor, they go to the hospital when they need to because they are a human being entitled to health care. That's point number one. Point number two, and what we say to our conservative friends who talk about waste every single day, there is no health care system in the world that comes close to being as wasteful and bureaucratic as our system. Why are we spending 30% of every health care dollar on administration and bureaucracy? We should be putting that money into doctors, into nurses, into disease prevention, into keeping our people healthy.
That's right.
This guy has apparently never had a course on rights in his entire life. What he is proposing here is tyranny, plain and simple. He believes that people have the right to take money from me to pay for their health care, and to theoretically conscript healthcare workers to be forced to provide that service. Rand Paul said it best when he said, "With regard to the idea of whether or not you have a right to health care, you have to realize what that implies. I'm a physician. That means you have the right to come to my house and conscript me. It means you believe in slavery. It means you're going to enslave not only me, but the janitor at my hospital, the assistants, the nurses. There's an implied threat of force. Do you have a right to beat down my door with the police, escort me away, and force me to take care of you? That's ultimately what the right to free health care would be." Now, this is certainly no endorsement for Rand Paul because I have lots of issues with him. And I talked about all of those in episode 9 of this show, which you can listen to at thelavaflow.com/9. But on this, Rand is dead on. Bernie would send people with guns to my house to steal money from me, to then send men with guns to Rand's house to force him to provide the service of health care. That is immoral. Now let's talk about Bernie's two specific points that he makes in his comment. In his first point, he makes the case that a person should be entitled to going to a doctor for health care and being taken care of without having to worry about paying for it or face bankruptcy because they are somehow entitled to health care. He believes that health care is a fundamental human right to be provided by others. But is it? Now, there are things called positive and negative rights. Positive rights require others to provide you with either a good or a service. A negative right, on the other hand, only requires others to abstain from interfering with your actions. Healthcare would be a positive right, which means others have to provide it for me. Negative rights, such as the freedom of speech, do not ever conflict with the rights of everyone else. Positive rights clearly interfere with the negative right of others to live free of force. As long as a positive right is forced on people, we can never be truly free people. Now to his second point. Part of the reason that healthcare is so expensive in this country is due to the cost associated with the burdensome regulations placed on the industry. And, of course, Obamacare. I work for a healthcare provider. I have seen costs go up dramatically due to Obamacare and regulations. At least half of my time and half the money spent by me every year is to make sure that we meet HIPAA, high-tech, and many other regulations for healthcare. We have to employ entire departments of people to deal with the regulations, and more departments of people to deal with the results of those regulations. I have never seen anything like it in my life. And we all wonder why our healthcare costs are going up, and why the cost of my insurance just went up. Bernie wants to know why there is so much waste in the bureaucracy of the healthcare industry. It's because of socialists like himself voting in onerous laws to regulate every single bit of what goes on in a doctor's office and a hospital. And it's not just the federal government. We face additional costs due to regulations and codes put in place by state governments. This is where the waste comes from. This is where the bureaucracy comes from. And if we went to single payer, I would imagine that the waste and bureaucracy would cost closer to 50% than 30%. Just look at what regulation and federal bureaucracy has done to the education system in this country. The exact same thing is coming to your local doctor's office if Bernie Sanders gets his way.
Exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per episode donation of as little as $1 an episode, or use Bitcoin. Get exclusive content, rewards, and help the Lava Flow become fiscally neutral while providing you more content. thelavaflow.com/support.
Talk the talk. Do you walk the walk?
No one is responsible for you except for you. If we are truly owners of ourselves, this is one of the most fundamental things that we must understand. And if we are responsible for ourselves, that means that we, and only we, are responsible for protecting ourselves. And if you have a family, you have even more of a duty to protect yourself and your family. This can be done with security, whether it be public or private police forces, if those forces are available and affordable. Unfortunately, in our current society, public security is the norm, and it is ineffective and inefficient, meaning that it can't be relied on. For the very wealthy, there are options such as private bodyguards or other private security, but that's out of the reach for most of us. If we were in a libertarian society without public police, then private security would be much more prevalent and much more cost-effective. But until we live in that society, we are left with limited options. Since we are ultimately responsible for ourselves and our own protection, it's imperative that we have the tools and knowledge to protect ourselves. Tools are easy to get. The knowledge of what tools to get and how to use them are generally much more difficult and time-consuming to acquire. The best tools for self-defense are going to be some form of firearm. Depending on where you are and what situation you're in, different types of firearms are the best tools at that time. From handguns to shotguns to rifles, each one has its own specific application, just like a hammer, a screwdriver, or a saw. Since handguns are much more compact and easy to carry compared to other types of firearms, these are generally your best bet for protection when you are away from home. Handguns come in all types and sizes, so it's best to find a handgun that has a good combination of small size and good power. All handguns can kill, but for the best ratio, it's best to go with something such as a 9mm, a 40 caliber, or a 45 caliber. Anything smaller than this, such as a 38 caliber or a 22 caliber, sacrifices way too much essential stopping power for self-protection. There are so many ways to carry a handgun these days that it's very easy to find a comfortable way to carry one at all times. My wife and I both have our concealed carry permits and carry regularly. I carry a Colt 1911 compact 45 caliber handgun, and my wife carries a Springfield XDM compact 40 caliber. Both of these are excellent examples of an excellent combination of size and power. The Colt 1911 is a thinner frame, so it's a bit easier to conceal in a standard holster on your hip, but it sacrifices ammunition capacity. My Colt holds 8 rounds in the magazine and 1 in the chamber. My wife's Springfield is thicker, so it's a bit more noticeable when concealed, but still not too difficult to conceal properly with the right clothing. It holds 16 rounds in the magazine plus 1 in the chamber, so a much bigger capacity. For home protection, there are even better options, since you don't have the burden of worrying about size or concealment. A home defense shotgun is a great tool for home defense. It's extremely versatile and can be used in many applications, depending on what you need to do with it. If you're concerned about penetrating walls and hitting innocent bystanders, such as a family member, you can cut that down quite a bit using buckshot. Now, don't think that it will still not penetrate walls, because buckshot will, but it will penetrate many less walls than would a slug or a rifle round. Always know what's in front of the muzzle of your weapon. Always. Another benefit to a tactical home shotgun is speed of deployment and maneuverability. The tactical size shotguns like a Remington 870 Express Tactical or the Mossberg 500 Tactical Persuader are excellent choices for home defense. They have shorter barrels, allowing you to maneuver quickly and easily with them. They hold lots of ammunition, and they're based on tried and true shotgun designs. There are also many tactical aftermarket items that you can buy for these, such as advanced stocks, shell carriers, and sights to make them easier to use and more effective. Another home defense necessity is a rifle of some sort, many which fit the misnomer of assault weapon. Something based off the AR-15 or the AK-47 platform is a tried and true staple defense rifle. These come in many different configurations that can be used for everything from long-range sniping to close-quarters battle. But there is no way that I can take the time here to describe all that you can do with these types of weapons. Do some research and learn all that you can about the pros and cons of these types of weapons and buy what's best for you and your application. The best tool that you can have in your inventory is your mind. Nothing, and I mean nothing, can replace knowledge when it comes to firearms. From knowing firearm safety to advanced weapons craft, knowledge is the best thing that you can buy. I don't recommend going out and buying a bunch of weapons right off the bat. Start with a simple handgun, buy lots of ammo, and go to the range. Learn the basics of using and firing your weapon. Once you have the basics down, find a range or an instructor that can take your training to the next level. I'm fortunate enough to live in an area that has two excellent choices for advanced weapons training, and my wife and I have taken advantage of this on several occasions. Classes of this type range from $50 to hundreds of dollars, but it's worth much more to have advanced knowledge than to have more guns. You can only use one gun at a time, and only one mind at a time. Upgrade your mind long before you upgrade your weapons inventory. And most importantly, always make sure to lock up any guns that you have in your home. This keeps them from being stolen and being used in crimes, and it also keeps children away from them. Always lock up your weapons, unless you have it on you. Thank you for listening to the show this week. As always, I need to thank the only person who really gets me, Jessica, for her help with the show, and Sheltered Life for allowing me to use their music. For the show notes to this episode, where I put links and lots of other information that's been on the show, go to thelavaflow.com/14. After a dry episode last time, I have 3 new iTunes reviews this time. Dee Dee says, "Great new podcast. I've enjoyed each of these new episodes and look forward to more. I love that it's trying to unite rather than divide various libertarians while sticking to the libertarian core issues." ZN Rider 11 says, "Fantastic podcast. Roger covers relevant topics with passion, intelligence, and critical logic. Content is current and thoughtfully examined and presented. He offers great in the news sections, which are both informative and humorous. Production quality is top-notch, reflecting his desire to put out a quality podcast respective of the time and interest of his listeners. I can't recommend this podcast enough. First episode and I'm hooked says, informed and informative. A great show for those looking to learn more about what's going on in our society. The show is well produced and broken into segments that make sense. Subscribed." These reviews get better all the time. I can't even begin to thank you guys enough for all of the kind words. Keep them coming. The ratings and reviews that I get make it easier for people to find our podcast. If you want to leave a review for me on iTunes, go to thelavaflow.com/iTunes review today and let your voice be heard. I'll read every single review I get on this show. If you like what this show gives you and you want more of it, and to keep this show ad-free, exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per-episode donation of as little as $1 an episode using Patreon or Bitcoin. There are monthly costs associated with doing this show, and I need additional equipment to continue making this show better for you every single episode. Until next time, keep striking the root.
Thank you for listening to The Lava Flow at thelavaflow.com. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe now at thelavaflow.com/subscribe. This has been a Pax Libertas Productions podcast.